Good morning, y'all. Good morning. I am here by God's grace, let me tell you. But I got my coffee, and before I had my coffee, I had Jesus. His grace, y'all. Y'all know I like to say His grace is my gas. It really is. One day it's gonna go on a shirt and maybe just turn it into something because my strength has failed me. I was telling someone my strength failed me like years ago. I'm just on grace. You know what I'm saying? Like there's when I look at my life, I'm like, I have 4 kids, businesses. There's no one's life that you're looking at on social media or a teacher, a leader, or somebody at the grocery store or in your car that's not going through something. Okay. Like everybody is going through something. And I've truly just, he will take me. It's a different perspective when you begin to see I'm not just going through this something alone. Because many times we don't catch the understanding or the revelation of why we're even going through what we're going through. And so it can cause us to have this sour taste in our mouth, to be in a state of emotional distress, of confusion, where we're now like asking God, like, did I do something wrong? Like, what's going on? You'll hear repenting, and and I'm like, let me do some self deliverance. Let me renounce because I don't understand what it is. Let me just try everything. Let me try a little bit of everything. Let me do some spiritual warfare and cast out the spirits that came to attack me. Let me rebuke the storm. Let me renounce. So let me, you know what I'm saying? Let me just do something, right? And you're wondering like why it's not stopped yet. Like what's going on. And God truly wants us to have understanding of what's even happening. I believe, at some point, so that we can truly remain in a place of rest, restoration. And there are some things that we may not just understand, but I believe that that's why we do have the word, right? Because when you look at Job's life, he did not like he had an understanding, and then eventually it's like he was in that situation for a certain duration of time and lost so much that he began to even question his understanding. But his initial understanding was right. It was right. So he did have an understanding, So I will say I do believe God wants us to have an understanding. I believe that the understanding that he wants us to be centered in, the truth that he wants us to be centered in, is that he is here with us. We're not in this situation by ourselves. Life is not just lifing and there's no purpose behind it. And we see even in Job's case where his name was brought up. It's like now Job is experiencing loss. He loses his kids. He begins to experience illness. Then he begins to experience accusations from his friends. So, Job's initial response to loss was correct. He had a great understanding, not just a great, it was centered in truth. Not just, how sometimes we say, my truth, my truth. No, no, this is the truth. Like there is only the truth, right? There's the truth, there's the facts, and there are the feelings. And so those are 3 different tiers. So he was centered in the truth. He said, naked I came into this world. Naked I'm gonna leave. That's pretty much what he said. Like, blessed be the name of the Lord. He was talking about his identity because any attack that we experience is actually an attack against our identity. Why? So that we can identify more with what is happening to us instead of who we actually are. And because if I begin to conform, as I was speaking about yesterday, imagine this is a rock and we are clay. And I begin to conform to the situation. And this is the situation. And the situation is I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. The situation is sickness. The situation is marital issues. The situation is friendship issues. The situation is sexual trauma in your childhood or some sort of assault that happened when you were a young adult. Maybe you've been robbed. Maybe you've experienced a car accident. Maybe you've experienced, grief. We've lost somebody, right? Someone dear to us, and this is the situation. And the situation is going to trigger emotions. Like it's going to trigger thoughts and feelings because you are human. So it is normal for you to have thoughts and feelings about a situation. Maybe it was just had a hard time even developing friendships since elementary school. Maybe you've always felt like you never fit in. It's been hard to find your tribe, your community, and you criticize yourself a lot because of whatever has even taken place in your childhood or whatever the case is. That's the situation. So many times we what? We conform to it. Yet who you actually are is not even is not the situation. This is just the situation. But all you know and all your soul knows is the situation. And so the situation can begin to impact how you see the world, how you see God, how you see people. Now, just because a situation is a situation doesn't mean that it's centered in truth. No, no, there may be some facts, but it doesn't mean it speaks to the truth of who you truly are. Just because, okay, say a part of the situation is someone attacked you through their words. Maybe they said that you weren't good enough. Maybe they made fun of your shoes. Okay, maybe they made fun of your car. Maybe they made fun of the way you speak. And so now I may not want to speak as a result of that. I remember I tried out for acting one time, and it was at church, and this was amongst the youth group, and I was just trying out something new because that's what we do. You go on you may have an interest and an idea, and you're just trying different things out, and especially we do this, I mean, I believe as children or teenagers, if we are encouraged to, because we can already have shyness, we know what it's like to be teased, and so we can do it trepidatiously, we can do it with some fear. All right. But I remember being shy. I had some anxiousness, some anxiety about it. And I read the line and I spoke the line. And then one of my friends at the time, this guy was like, you're not a good actor. Like that hurt my feelings so bad. Cause I'm like, oh no, you're my friend. And when you think about that dynamic of a friendship, they know you to some extent, right? But as I'm developing in something that is new, obviously, like I may not be good at it. Maybe there are some people who are just natural actors. They're just natural. We say, oh, they're natural leaders, they're natural singers, and all of this, right? But you can also grow in gifts that you're interested in, or perhaps it was just how I was overthinking it, even that I didn't give myself permission to even relax enough to just be, right? And that definitely impacted even my first try. And so as you continue to cultivate that gift, you get better, you become more confident in that gift. But those words carry so much weight that I did not try again, y'all. Your girl, stop. Okay. And I had to be about at least like 14. I don't know. I think I was like 14, 15, something like that. But I allowed it to carry that much weight. So that is us conforming to the situation. Okay. And so when we begin to understand that when the enemy is also insecure about our future, or he wants to disconnect us from our Father, he will send attacks, and the attack is always going to be really against your identity. So you don't know who you are, and you begin to question God. Because now, if I'm disconnected from my Maker, if I'm disconnected from my Father who loves me unconditionally, right? Then I will take life on myself and try to configure or figure it out myself, and configure different ways or solutions that are not going to satiate the emptiness or the void that I actually do feel. Right. And so now Job is losing. Not only is he losing all this stuff, imagine like you're losing, and now people are telling you you must have sinned against God, yet you did not. Your wife is telling you, how about you just curse God and die so I can go to hell? Like what? Like curse God? And so now he's getting ungodly advice from those right around him. And that advice is now, it's really centered in the enemy's mission statement, right? Like companies have a mission statement, they know their purpose, right? And so we need to know our purpose, but we know our pain, right? We know our pain confidently. Many times I ask women, what are you good, what are your limiting beliefs, or how do you feel about yourself? And they will confidently say it. I don't feel that, I don't feel that great about myself. I struggle here. Da da da. And so I think the awareness is good, but I'm saying that there is more hesitation to express what they are good at sometimes. And there can be a lot of confidence in what I'm bad at. And I remember being there too, right? And I love just the moment of or the pivot that begins to happen as we're working together, and they begin to truly embody the truth of who they are. They begin to become activated through different steps and exercises where they learn something new, because your brain just needs new information. but not just new information. Your brain needs new information that is going to stick because of activation. There needs to be an action step that is taken, which I call exposure therapy, that lets you know, okay, I did not die in this situation. I'm okay. Like I made it, and it's because our brain can again think worst case scenario. So now we have Job's friends thinking the worst about him. Imagine that, thinking the worst. You didn't even do anything, bro. You're good, and your name was just brought up, right? So it was Job's name that was just brought up. It was just brought up because Satan was seeking who he can devour. And right, so God is talking with the enemy, with Lucifer or Satan, and he said, "Have you considered my servant Job?" He's like, he's that way because of everything that you've given him. And so it's interesting because, my God, we think that we many times have this false belief that it's what we have that we're going to find contentment in. So now I can add more materials, or add more to my wagon that I'm dragging along this journey called life. Maybe it's more people, maybe it is more animals, maybe it's more purses, maybe it's more houses, maybe it's more land, whatever. It's just more jewelry, more money. And so now our identity can become shaken if those things are gone, especially if I've centered it, right? If I've centered myself in those things that are actually temporary, because that was Satan's accusation. And so that's not just his accusation against Job. That was his belief, like that, and that's his belief about people. And so God brings him up. And it's not even that those things are bad, but if I center my emotional stability on those things, well, I'm gonna have some challenges when those things leave, understanding that they are temporary anyway. And is it normal to experience a response against bankruptcy, or with someone passing away, or losing a job, or losing an animal? Like I've known people who've had animals for like a long time, and then right, we all are going somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Where we all have that time where the time is up, right? Sadly. And the appropriate response to that is sadness. There is going to be grief. So we do understand that as well. But what I'm saying is, if I conform to it, I may end up staying in a cycle of grief, or in a cycle of sadness that can then turn into a depression if I don't allow myself to embody the perspective of everything in this world is temporary anyway. There's a greater purpose, there's a greater mission that I've been sent here that is actually going to help me cope with everything in life that happens. And that Jesus paid the ultimate sacrifice. He paid the ultimate sacrifice. He went through the most excruciating pain that I will never have to experience. You know how you say, well, somebody's situation is much worse, right? You could just look at a third world country and then have sudden gratitude of where you are. And it could just help like stabilize your perspective. Even if it was just a little bit, it just helps bring some stability to it, right? And so even especially as gas prices are going up, everything's going up. And imagine it's like, man, everything's going up, everything is going up. And we begin to get filled with sadness or rage, or we're just upset. So we allow the situation to dictate us. And now financial stress is not good. I have been there. Like I've been there recently. Okay. Especially where money is even spread amongst projects, big projects, right? Projects connected to eternal purpose that are being tested, right? And so that way, like I almost to give up or to question it, and I've had to renew my mind and like, okay, now this is, how big is this book? How big is this project that's actually happening, that I'm being tested in this way? And it must be big. It must be huge, right? And so when you're being tested, so much doubt will come, right? And it's like, all right, God, how am I going to make this? How am I going to make this work? How am I going to make this work? He's like, trust me, right? Because remember, as we said yesterday, we can only serve two masters. We never want to serve the situation and make the situation our master, that now we can no longer master our thoughts, our emotions. And then we become disconnected from God because we're like, God, Well, I thought you're Jehovah Jireh. You're supposed to be providing for me. He's like, I am a provider. I am a provider. I have made a way, right? And so sometimes the way that we think it's supposed to look, the way that he's made, we project that onto him, yet it's a different way. It could be asking someone for support. It could be the way that he's made. It could be us selling what we have or what we already have in our hands. It's so much that he's given me to give books and journals and things to give birth to that I've given birth to. It could be conversations that needed to be had to bring correction to our own household that we may have been avoiding. I was in that situation. It's like when you're in a situation, there's always purpose to that situation. There is always purpose to that situation that when you try, I remember even just this week trying to configure out some solutions and it was just wasn't working. It wasn't. And but God was working in that. He was even working through that because it was bringing a right alignment into something that was misaligned, which is in a place where I was carrying more than what I was supposed to. So he was just bringing divine order in his time, and that happened this week. And so it was so interesting, And so there's always a purpose, is what I'm saying, to everything that we're experiencing. And Job was tested, and he was tested in his faithfulness to God. Are you going to remain faithful, or is the situation going to prophesy over you instead of you prophesying over it? Is how people treating you, accusations that come against you, the murmurings as your leader Moses, because we got some Moseses in here, right? We have some Josephs in here. We have some Deborahs in here. And when I say Moses, I know this is a women's group, but I'm talking about the leadership and the calling that you've been called to. We have some Jobs in here, okay, where you've experienced loss, you've experienced accusations, you're in a bad financial situation, you are experiencing misunderstandings amongst your family. People don't understand you, they don't understand the dreams that God has given you. And so God is seeing all of that. And so when we see all of it too, we can become salty. Not being the salt, but I'm talking about salty because we're like, God, this is too much. And God has said, it's not too much for me. I'm calling you out of serving those situations and allowing those situations to prophesy over you. And I want you to understand your true identity in me. I know the Genesis, but I've also given you an Exodus because I am taking you somewhere. Even as the Israelites were in a place of barrenness, they're in the wilderness, and they're like, Lord, now, okay, you gave us the food. Now we're thirsty. Did you bring us out here? This is another complaint. Did you bring us out here to die? Because sometimes even when you're leading people, it's you'll get that resistance. Why? Not because it's against you. It's really against their murmurings are against God. Okay. When you're leading people somewhere, their murmurings are against God, right? Because we have trust issues. We can have trust issues, right? And but understand that God is getting Egypt out of us so that we're not serving money. We're not serving the trauma. That we're not serving people through people pleasing. That we're not serving those things, but that we're serving Him, right? And so he of course the miracle, is the water coming out of the rock, and then you have Amalek who literally came right after that to fight the Israelites, and Moses gave Joshua instructions to bring men, qualified men, to go and fight Amalek, right? And we have Moses who lifted up his hands, and as he lifted up his hands, they won. And Moses was tired, and he lifted up his hands again. They put his hands on top of a rock to rest. Who is the rock? Jesus is the rock. It's so interesting how Jesus is even intertwined in the Old Testament. You see grace even before they were under the law. Now we're no longer under the law, but who is the rock? Because it's not meant for us to have this emotional instability to the point where even where God places us, He gives us something new. He gives us a promotion, a new job, a new relationship, that if we remain in what is old, we can even sabotage what is new because of that emotional instability, because of those old thought processes where we go from 0 to 10, where we cursing folks out, right? But yet remember, you're still a witness. Even when somebody is treating you wrong, you're still a witness. What do I mean? When people look at you, they should see Jesus, is what I'm saying. So you're still a witness because everybody has triggers. There's no person that doesn't have triggers. And it's more effective. I was telling my kids yesterday, because we're like, oh, well, can we use alternative language? I can, because we were talking about, like, I saw some of my 15-year-old's text messages. She said, the freak. She said freak. And I said, Damari, don't say that word because it's an alternative of the F word. And she was like, but my friends say it, and can I say another word? And Ava, and just in her, just she's 9, she was like, well, can we say fudge? Right? Oh, come on, this is real talk. And so I said no, because it's an alternative. I said we can develop more articulate speech to express how we feel, right? And just explaining that it's conforming to the trend. It's conforming to the language that may seem trendy and okay. But just because it's trendy, just because everybody else is doing it, doesn't mean that it isn't a device. Well, we can become desensitized and normalize it, but it's all to in little ways get you embedded into a pattern where you conform to patterns in the world instead. And then so now when you're doing something different and then somebody comes against you and they're like, you're too goody two shoes. Imagine, like, you're different and you're shifting into what is new because now you're becoming aware of how you speak and how you dress, or what you no longer want to participate in. And suddenly the attack looks like you're being weird, or, oh, you're so holier than thou. Not even like being self-righteous. I'm not even judging anybody, right? So you've not even gotten to a place of where you're like, okay, there's not the boldness yet where it's like, okay, no, this is wrong, but God loves you. Like, because there's a way to express what is true in love, right? You can do it. But I'm saying, say you're not even there at that point yet, right? You're just shifting. God is just changing you, and now people start to notice it and they attack it. Oh, you're just this. It's just so interesting. The identity is what gets attacked. It's the identity. So, anyways, what I'm saying is, going back to just, I'm not sure how I got there, but going back to Moses, he put his hand on the rock and he lifted up his hands during the attack. So that is also a key warfare strategy. It's not always what we think it is. The greatest understanding that you can ever have, and the truth that you could always be centered in, is Jesus is the rock. He is the way, he's the truth, he's the life. I'm going to praise you anyhow. Like, I was tested this week, and I had to renew my mind, and I'm like, you know what? No, 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 no. This is a test. This is a test. And before I even understood what the test was about, I'm like, Lord, you are faithful. You are faithful. I know, but it is us that have to renew our minds, Lord. It is us that has to get through these thoughts, these accusations, and all of this, and how we can start to question you. It's us. But Lord, you are faithful. And I thank you for it. I thank you that everything, now I'm starting to speak the scripture over myself and over the situation. And then he showed me what the whole situation was about. And I'm like, Lord, you are deep, like, oh my goodness. I was thinking it was a demonic attack. It was divine intervention. He was just bringing things into in alignment because of how stubborn I can be, how we can be, where we configure things ourselves and we normalize distress. We normalize the stress. We normalize the struggle. Yet God has made a way, whether it's through you selling your products, whether it is through you having healthy boundaries and you asking for help from the right person that needs to give up, you know what I'm saying? Ask that you need to ask for help from, or whether it's a new job, whether he's made a way. And even in making a way, there may, just as you, he will align, even when we don't understand it, he will just so perfectly align everything to where it is so clear what you need to do. That's all I'm gonna say. Whether it's, okay, I do need to ask for help, I do need to apply for this, I do need to get this grant, I do need to go, you know what I'm saying? Like, he will make it so clear. He'll make it so clear, because we can also get comfortable living in ambiguity, where we're like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? Where we're just going with the flow and coasting. But even in that, like, he will bring such clear alignment. You know what I'm saying? That you can't mess it up. That is like, okay, God, I see you. I got you. All right. And it's like, God is so faithful. He is so faithful. And then they won that battle against Amalek. because there's always going to be some sort of Amalek that's trying to hinder you from getting to your promised land. There's always going to be some sort, because it says Amalek, God is going to war against Amalek generation to generation. What is Amalek? It's a delay spirit. It's a spirit of discouragement. It's a spirit of fear. And what is it going to come through? It may come through job loss. It may come through some sort of sickness. It may come through something that attacks relationships where there is just opposition. There's an opposition when you're going to the promise. Okay, starting a new project, starting a business. You may be already in the business and there's an attack. So there is some sort of opposition and praise. Okay, like, okay, Lord, you are sovereign over this situation. The situation is not sovereign over me. That is the heart posture. And as you experience these difficulties and these trials, it is an opportunity for you to get to know God's faithfulness. And so now Moses builds an altar that he calls Jehovah Nisi. That's where Jehovah Nisi came from. I was like, oh, Jehovah Nisi, because he reigns in victory. He reigns in victory. So now I'm building an altar. I'm calling Jehovah Nisi because now that is the new way that I know God. And he knew him too because he just brought him out of Egypt with that exclamation point exit, because he had to let all those little gods know I'm the one true God. I'm the most high God. And this is where I'll end. He now meets his father-in-law and he tells him of all the things that God has done after the victory against Amalek. And his father-in-law says something very interesting. They rejoice together because that when you win, that's the appropriate response to you sharing good news. It should never be, oh, I wish I was, there should never be some sort of comparison or, competition or, oh, I never this. They rejoiced because it was God that brought that win. That is the response that people who are destiny helpers, divine connections should have when we win. And so now he's won. And so now they're rejoicing. And Moses tells Jethro, his father-in-law, of all the things that God has done. Right? God is you have won. I'm telling you, maybe you don't feel like you're winning. Maybe your situation has prophesied over you, but I want to encourage you to prophesy over your situation, over your finances. See what's in your hands. Lord God, what have you given me? What have you given me that I need to use, that I need to sell, that I need to promote? What are the boundaries that I need to have in my relationships? What is the next step that I need to take? Because also we need counsel too, if we're confused. How do I know? Let me just tell you. So Jethro says, now I know that God is the God of is now I know that God is the most high God over all the gods. When you look at that statement, now I know that God is the most high God. So you didn't know before? There was doubt before, Jethro? There was doubt. There was, because he's saying, now I know. It means that it is implied he didn't know, that he's been in some situations in life where he's seen other little gods. They're serving all these gods, and whether the idol is reputation, where we're serving our reputation, we're serving a person, or the gods in the water, gods in this. They're seeing the fallen angels, they're calling themselves God. That has made him question because he's seen some magician powers, he's seen some sorcery, he's seen some things, and you've seen things happen, and you're like, why do they seem to prosper? Yet I'm a child of God, and sometimes you start to wonder no more, okay? Because God is the most high God. And so he will, I believe, like the true, what God will do, just as he did in Egypt, he came against every little God that these people were serving and worshiping through all the plagues. So what you may experience as you are seeing all the little gods or the witchcraft or the sorcery and all this stuff that's happened in your life, all these attacks that the enemy wanted to keep you in some sort of dismay or bondage in, where you ask God to come in at the appointed time, he does. And he comes against every one of those things that ever came against you. And as those things don't want to release you, it has a hardened heart, it could be a person or whatever that the enemy is using, you may feel the backlash from what God is doing. And they start to blame you. And they start to, now they're monitoring you and monitoring spirits, and they're talking about you, and they're having all these conversations that you don't know about. You just feel the heaviness of what they're talking about, and they're just wondering. They're trying to figure you out. They're trying to see why they're not wanting you to prosper. They're like an Amalek. They're like a Pharaoh. You're starting new ventures. Now you're finding your voice. God is restoring you as he separated you, or bringing separation or for elevation, removing you from dysfunction, removing you from captivity or emotional captivity that you might have been committed to just because it was familiar. He's starting, you know what I'm saying? So he's working all these events, and they're like, I don't want to let you go. No, 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 no. I have an accusation against you. No, no, he may be doing something wrong, or and so just because they are mad at you doesn't mean that God is mad at you. Just because they find fault with you, like they questioned Job, did you do something wrong? Doesn't mean that you've done something wrong just because everything is going wrong. It means God is bringing everything right, and there's going to be double for your trouble. It means that God is bringing you out of captivity so that you can serve him and be loyal to him, because the blessing of the Lord maketh rich and adds no sorrow to it. There doesn't have to be any compromise. You don't got to lay it down for nobody. You just lay it all down for him. Right? The one who's already predestined you for greatness. He's already predestined you for purpose. He knows the plan that he has for you. Okay. I just got to make it clear, right? So God did an exclamation point. So even if you feel the backlash of what's happening, understand that God got your back. All right. And he's taking you somewhere, and he's taking you to that place that he already prepared for you. Even if there's opposition, he's already declared victory over your life. That's why he's Jehovah Nissi, and he just wants you to get to know him, because there's opposition that comes as you rise. That's why the scripture says, as you increase my greatness, you'll comfort me on every side. And then Jethro begins to give Moses instruction and counsel on, make sure, like as you're judging the people, because he's sitting all these long days, morning until evening, judging the people, taking all this responsibility on himself. You don't have to do it yourself. He begins to give him instruction. Imagine a man who hears from God also needed counsel that came from God through a man to get out any confusion about how he needs to maintain the success, right? Because sometimes we're wondering, can I even maintain the success when I start the ministry, when I start the business? How can I maintain it? It just seems like it's going to be so draining. You can't do it by yourself. And the beauty is that you don't have to. That God will send you destiny helpers. So then we know that Moses rose up 70 that helped counsel the people, because he received wise counsel from Jethro. If you are in need of counsel, I want to encourage you and invite you to come into the community. I want to invite you, women, to grow. We do devotions Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. And y'all, you see, I get so excited because it's so exciting to just be in revelation with the Holy Spirit, who enlightens our understanding. And so that we can have a better understanding of what's even happening and cope, not just cope, but be victorious, not just survive, but truly thrive. Okay. And we're also doing a mental retreat. It's a mental cruise beginning June 1st, y'all. To this book right here. Those are part of the membership, right? Because this is sanctification and purification of every weight. And so you don't even have to have your camera on. We're gathering something to look forward to at 7 p.m. each night for 14 days. We do a challenge each month, right? And I don't want you to miss this challenge, ladies, where you've been carrying so many weights. You've been trying to figure it out yourself. You're feeling irritated, frustrated. You've experienced rejection. You feel angry. You feel isolated. This is a time of releasing it all, letting it all fall. All right. This is a time of surrendering to who you truly are in God. So we do affirmations, biblical affirmations, and I'm going to just take you through it. It's just about 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes each night, Monday through Friday, starting June 1st for 14 days. And if you sign up, y'all, if you sign up today, you're going to get the book. I'm going to gift you the book, but you can still sign up until before June 1st. You all take care. Be blessed.